Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the IOE, University of Michigan IOE Graduate School webinar. Today, we have a number of faculties. We have Professor Marina Eppelman, the Associate Chair for Graduate Studies. We have Professor Xichen Shen, the Chair of Graduate Admission. We also have 4 other faculty members, Professors Raed Alcanta, Albert Harris, Salah Fatahi, and myself. Though we represent different research areas of IOE. So today we will begin to answer some common questions that we see that you enter on the registration form. Those common questions. Yes.
Hey, do you want to go over sort of ground rules about Q&A and stuff like that?
You mean the introduction?
So I can talk a little
so,
bit about that. So basically today, what we'd like you to do, and I assume that everyone has already kind of like watched the video list that we sent it to you. If you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A. Do not enter them in the chat. Okay, so the problem with the chat box is that if you enter and then people who join later can't see anything in the chat box, and we want to be able to keep on tracking the questions being entered and making sure that all the questions being answered. So during the talk anytime, you can enter your question in the Q&A.
Yes, so during the talk anytime, please enter your questions in the Q&A session. So for some representative questions in the Q&A, we will answer them verbally. For other questions, we will try our best to answer them in text format. Okay, so without further ado, the common questions, we have 4 categories of common questions: application process, application review and admissions, financial aid and funding, and studying in IOE. So we will go over each of the 4 categories one by one. Okay, so now let's start with common questions related to application process. Can I apply to the PhD program with my bachelor degree?
So I think Xichen is supposed to be answering these questions, but she's having some technical issues. So I'm going to take the ones that I can answer and kind of punt the others until she hopefully comes back. Okay. So yeah, so when it comes to the PhD applications, you don't need to have a master's degree, or you don't need to be enrolled in a master's program while you're applying to the PhD program. Many, if not most, of our PhD students only enter with only a bachelor's degree behind them. Now, you have to be applying, your undergraduate degree has to be from an accredited university. And if you're coming from an international school, and if you have any doubts that your degree is considered accredited, please check with the Rackham School of Graduate Studies. That's the part of the university that actually processes the applications. If you have any concerns, they have contact information on their website, and you can work with them. Yeah. So going to the next question. So the GRE scores are not required if you're applying this year. So if you're applying for fall 22 admissions for either PhD or master's program, we do not require, in fact, we do not accept GRE scores. So we won't be looking at them for this year's application. Xichen, have you resolved your technical issues? All right.
Yeah. So I just get back. I apologize, and I'm glad we have co-hosts now being able to continue with the meeting. Yeah, I just promoted Salah and Matt into a panelist, so I can continue answer some of these questions. So The third question is, can I get an application fee waiver? There is a formal channel listed on our website in the Q&A session, FAQ session, that you can find a link. But in general, those needs to be approved by RACM. So basically, through the RACM, you can submit a application waiver. To be honest, they have to be, kind of like qualifying for certain sort of like requirements in the RACM webpage. So
But
in general, yeah.
I should say though, so if for this admission cycle, so again, if you're applying for fall 22, if you are a domestic student, so if you're a US citizen, permanent resident, or a DACA recipient, we have a pre-approved waiver system. So basically, if you are a domestic student, when you go to fill out your application on the, by the way, we say RACM, this is shorthand for Rackham School of Graduate Studies. So that's the organization within the university that kind of manages graduate applications, graduate enrollment. So they're, in addition to an educational mission, they also serve a lot of administrative roles. And so I'm sure today we're going to refer to Rackham repeatedly. So that's what we're talking about. So anyway, so their website hosts the link to the application. So if you go to apply, you click on that link, you start filling out your information. At some point, they're going to ask you about US citizenship or US residency. And if you are a US citizen or permanent resident, they will process your application fee waiver automatically. Again, this is true for the current application cycle. So if you are going to be applying further into the future, things might change, but that's the situation right now. Now, if you don't fall into this category, you can request, there's a mechanism for you to request the application fee waiver, but unfortunately, I have to be honest with you, they're very, very limited.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for adding that. Yes, this year we waive all the fees for kind of like US citizen and permanent resident, also DACA recipient. So then, the next question is, I have work experience over 3 years. Is it all right if I can't get 2 letters of recommendation from faculty, but instead just get 1? We do not have a restrict, kind of like requirements say the recommendation letters has to come from faculty members. But then we do highly recommend at least one of them come from faculty members. And so the answer to this question is yes. But we definitely think, and then it was in my video that you should find the people who knows you the best, who can kind of like give more details about, why you are the best candidate for, kind of like this program. And then that's encouraged. If I'm applying for a second master degree in IOE as a registered student, will there be any special regulation? So Matt, can you kind of like comment on this question? My understanding is that they can apply IOE as a dual degree, right, while they're doing another degree here.
Yes, they can. The restriction is that you need to have at least a 3.0 GPA, be a student of good standing, and this be your second semester, or you have completed 8 credits with Rackham Graduate School before you can apply for a dual degree.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to the next category, applications review and admissions.
So the first question is, what are the prerequisite academic experience is expected of applicants? So in general, we do not have a specific degree requirements, like you have to be in bachelor in certain area to be able to apply for IOE. There are some courses definitely, are necessary, right? If you want to pursue a graduate degree in industrial operations engineering. And again, if we often have outstanding applicants who do not necessarily have all the courses that we would like to see in your transcript, undergraduate transcript, still we'll meet them because, the admission process is a holistic review and we consider them as good candidate. And then normally we have sort of like a follow-up email after the offer letter to tell people what kind of courses, what kind of prerequisites that you would need to have in order to pursue some courses here. But then, acknowledging that IOE is a very diverse sort of like a field, it's like case by case. And then, like there are many ways that you can get these prerequisites through either, like things we sometimes revisit in at the beginning of some classes, or, there are certain classes you can take in Michigan to get those prerequisites. So that's the answer to the first question. Is there any bar for master program for someone who have study gap, but with years of job experience? We welcome, kind of in fact, a diverse pool of applicants, including people who have been in, kind of like doing industry job for many years, but still want to come back to school. We in fact see that as a plus in some sense, especially for a master sort of like a degree here. And then again, some of these prerequisites, like we do not call them prerequisite anymore, because again, if you don't have some of these expertise, you can make up afterwards, right? So in a lot of our courses that involve some sort of like a degree of linear algebra, calculus, and also like computer coding and probability and statistics. Those I would see some sort of like things that you can strengthen yourself before you apply. But again, if you don't have related courses, we can have ways to have you make up afterwards. What's the rate of acceptance for your graduate programs? We do not have a fixed rate, just a rough number in general. For master application, we normally get 400 to 500 every year. For PhD, we normally get, I would say, 200 to 250 or 300 every year. Yeah, and then for the master, normally we, per year, we admit around 70 to 90 students. And then for PhD, it depends on, how many faculty members are actively searching for student. The number of PhD students we admit every year range between 9 to 20. That's a very high upper bound.
I should clarify though, this is the number of people that we enroll.
Exactly, yeah,
right?
it's not the
Right? So
acceptance
this
rate.
is the number of
Yeah.
people who actually
Finally accept our offer.
start their studies
Yeah.
the following semester, right? So
Mhm.
we admit more people than that, because of course not everybody who gets admitted comes through the University of Michigan.
That's right.
So yeah, so the number we admit is somewhat higher than what Sichan cited, but this is how many people we usually have joining the master's and the PhD program respectively every year.
Mm-hmm. And I should emphasize that again, the admission process for both master and PhD are rolling horizon way. So we admit a few first, and then if they turn down the offer, there's still more offers being sent out in later part of the process. So yeah, so definitely, like we're enrolling more than that. We're accepting more than the people who enroll every year. On what basis does university select a candidate? It's a very broad question. Basically, you are asked to submit transcript which shows your GPA, your courses that taken your undergraduate. You'll have two statements, personal statement and a statement of purpose. And basically those will show us some of your pre-qualification, why you want to do this degree and so on and so forth, right? And then there are recommendation letters from people who know you well. And then there are test scores, like for people who don't have their undergraduate degree in an English-speaking institution, you need to submit either TOEFL or IELTS. Sorry. Yeah. So then, basically, these are all what we take into account when we review application. I can't really say like, is there any one thing, overwhelmingly we take into account than the other things. So, but then definitely, we want to select the best candidate in terms of qualification, and also the potential. And how important it is to have a publication for the application to a PhD program. I wouldn't say it's a required thing. And in fact, the PhD study will in fact have you to be able to write a publication in the end. At least for myself, when I take into account who I would like to admit, qualification is not definitely a sort of like a required. And in fact, that there are, publication like quality in terms of which journal you publish, right, and things like that. But research experience in general, I would definitely encourage those of you who are interested in PhD degree to get some degree of research experience during your current, either undergraduate or master study. It can be, just, doing a summer project with the faculty and things like that, to at least one taste about what it look like in terms of doing the research. Do you really like that, right? And second, definitely getting people to know who can write you recommendation letters with that regard, your ability of doing so, okay? If you're comfortable sharing what attributes are looking for in the PhD personal statement portion of the application. Again, I think, first of all, it's a personal statement. I don't have a specific criteria that you have to include in your personal statement because it's all based on all your experience. But I would definitely suggest you linking your personal experience towards also, why you want to do PhD. And then, like what aspect of the PhD program actually make being attractive to you. And then some of your personal experience may say, like why you get interested in terms of exploring new unknown knowledge, right? And things like that. Those are things that usually related to the PhD study. Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the.
Yeah,
if I just add to that. So as Sichan mentioned, now if I'm sure most of you are, but if you are applying to multiple universities for graduate studies, you'll notice that some of them don't ask for two statements. They just ask for one, and it's usually, they can call it different things, but it's usually sort of a statement of purpose or an academic statement or something like that. And some of them, that's all the kind of writing they ask about. And then others, including us, they ask for a personal statement. And so this is the question we copied from the survey, but it's not just a PhD personal statement. Every graduate applicant should submit a personal statement. And as Sichan mentioned, this is somewhat separate from your sort of academic statement, where you might talk about your technical background, your academic background, your work background, as well as explaining what you want to study in graduate school, why you're motivated to pursue graduate studies, what subjects or research areas particularly interesting to you, et cetera, et cetera. A personal statement, as the name suggests, is basically to help us complement that information about your sort of professional and academic background and aspirations with more information about you. And so if you've done some interesting or significant volunteer or outreach work, that's something to write about. If you are coming from perhaps an unusual or underrepresented background, be it where you're from sort of geographically, where if you had some sort of interesting life experiences, maybe they have sort of contributed in your interest in graduate studies. Maybe this is just an interesting aspect of your sort of whole person that you think is interesting for us to know about you. That's the kind of things that the personal statement is about. And as Sichan was saying, it's hard to answer the question of what do you look for in an applicant, because we really do follow the idea of a holistic review of every application. So it's not like, we look at the first page of application where your GPA is, and if the GPA is below a certain number, we just throw the application out. It's not at all like that. Every application is read from the first page to the last page by to consider, all aspects of your application and your background and your sort of future interests, etc. And one of the things, it's not the only thing, but one of the things we use the information in the personal statement for is figuring out what types of funding you might be eligible for at the application stage. So there are some, for example, there are some fellowships that Rackham School of Graduate Studies awards to students who are entering graduate programs, and eligibility and sort of qualifications for some of these awards are often things that are asked about and often answered in these personal statements. So for example, whether you've done some outreach and volunteering, that is one of the qualifications for some of these awards. And so that's part of the information we will be looking at when we're reading these personal statements. But that's just one example. I think the biggest message is, we're trying to evaluate each application holistically. So the more three-dimensional picture we have on each applicant, that can be created on paper, the better. And so when you reach the sort of step in the application process, when you ask to submit the personal statement, they have instructions. They ask kind of leading questions about the things they want you to write about. Read those carefully and try to honestly answer them the best that you can. So that's my recommendation. Oh, by the way, I just told you to read those instructions very carefully, and I'm going to take back part of that. They do say that you're limited to something like 500 words. That's, I mean, they don't really check whether you actually fit into 500 words. So, aim for, 1 or 2 pages. Just really, ask yourself, what do I need to say to really sort of describe myself and answer the questions they're asking? And, aim for 1 or 2 pages. Don't count words. You don't have to, because they're not going to. So why should you?
Thank you, Marina. And Sichuan, you are going to answer one question lively.
Well, so that question is about whether or not publication is required for PhD admission. And I already answered that before. So that's why I say it's already been answered lively.
Okay.
Right. So one thing that I would like to emphasize for people who just joined, please put your question into a Q&A. Do not put your question in the chat. Otherwise, we are not be able to keep on tracking of it, whether it has been answered. And for those of you, if you are interested, I think I highly recommend you, in fact, go to the answer set of the list of answer questions in the Q&A to just see questions from others and how we answer them. And I think that's, in fact, relevant to a lot of you who even don't have the chance typing your question yet, because I think there are a lot of similar questions there. And then the other thing, I spot a few, common things in the Q&A, like, for example, the deadline for master and PhD, like when they are, these kind of questions, or whether or not we have like a minimum score for either TOEFL or other language test. They are all on our website, and I put the links, to where you can find the either PhD or master application step-by-step instruction on our website in my answer. So please go there, check. And also we already talk about them in our video that being sent to you before this webinar. So please go through the video as well if you don't have a chance to do so before the webinar, and definitely do that afterwards, okay? And then there is one open question, in fact, I would like to go to right now. Is relevant to, and I think maybe, some of you have the similar question, is can master student receive TA position from the department? I think to a broader sense, can master student get funding, right, in general? The answer is yes. We have, in fact, quite a few fellowships given to master student when we meet you. And then those are competitive. It's not everyone gets it. And then, they have certain sort of like criterias. But then we do have fellowship given to master student. Other master students who come here afterwards, there are a lot of financial support that you can apply. So it can be like a full TA position in the sense that it's a graduate student instructor position. And then we do have quite a big portion every year given to master student. And if you get one of those, basically the tuition is waived and then you get some stipend and health insurance. There are also greater position that it's paid by hour. So how many hours you spend grading, and then you'll be, kind of like paid for the effort. Those are some partial financial support. Some master students find basically, like a faculty they can work with in terms of doing research. And then those are positions that we call GSRA positions or research assistant position. So these are not only restricted to my PhD student. And in our department, in fact, there is a quite big variety of positions that master student can get to get financial support. Okay. So yeah, I think, Jesse, maybe you can go through the next page to answer more questions that you're finding.
Yes, so more questions about funding and financial aid.
Okay. So yeah, the first is, are there fully funded opportunities in this program? And I assume that it's for master. For PhD, all the PhD students are fully funded.
So
Sorry.
Sichan, I think this is what I meant to take
Oh yeah,
over.
yeah. I think you
but
should.
Of course, if I miss something or say something incorrect,
Yeah, go ahead.
Please
You
jump
do
in.
that. Mm-hmm.
So let me, before we get into these specific answers, let me just set the stage for this discussion, because the funding for PhD students and the funding and financial aid for master students work differently. So for PhD students, and I think I'm going to just give a general description, and I think that might actually answer some of the questions already.
Mm-hmm.
So for PhD students, every PhD student is guaranteed funding for, in most cases, 5 academic years. So there are some exceptions where that period is shorter. It's 4 years for students who already have a master's degree in industrial engineering or a closely related field when they start their PhD studies, because they kind of have a leg up with coursework and stuff like that. But generically, PhD students get a guarantee of funding for 5 academic years when they're admitted to the program. Now, that, of course, is conditional on the student making adequate academic progress towards their degree. So I want to, and so if you are admitted, when you get your admissions offer, it will be accompanied with a description of what that funding support actually is going to consist of for the next 5 years. And that includes tuition paid in the fall and winter semesters. That includes health insurance for you. And if you have a family coming with you, for your partner and your children for 12 months out of the year. So that's year round. And also you're guaranteed a stipend for the academic year. So that's September through April. Now, summer funding, so May through August, is not part of that funding guarantee, and we can talk separately about what happens with summer funding for PhD students. Now, and you'll have, again, when you get your admissions letter that's accompanied with this financial offer, you'll get a more detailed breakdown about what the stipend levels are, and what the tuition, what tuition is, what the health insurance coverage is, et cetera. Now, of course, these are estimates because the costs change year to year, and your funding support will adjust to accommodate that in future years. We're just basing these estimates on the current numbers during the year when you're admitted. Now, what we cannot tell you at the time you're admitted is where that money is going to come from for each semester of your 5 years of study. Usually we'll have a statement about where the money is coming from in your first year. So it would be, some sort of fellowship. We might be able to tell you exactly which kind of fellowship, maybe not. But so in future years and future semesters, some PhD students have fellowships. Some of them are internal to the university. Some of them are external. They might be, for US citizens, they might be, for example, from the National Science Foundation or a similar organization. Some international students have scholarships from some organizations from the countries they're coming from. Sometimes they're government fellowships, sometimes there's something else. Most of the time, most students have some sort of combination of GSI and GSRA positions, so teaching assistantships and research assistantships. And exactly, if you're a teaching assistant, what course you're teaching in any particular semester. If you are a research assistant, what project you're working on, what grant you're being paid by. That information gets reviewed and updated and decided just before every subsequent semester. So in some sense, the PhD students' funding is coordinated centrally, in the sense that the department does monitor to make sure that we're actually satisfying our promise of funding for every PhD student, as long as they're maintaining their progress towards their degree. But for each student and for every semester for each student, the actual source of that funding has to be reviewed and decided, again, with coordination between the department, the student's advisor, and sometimes external funding sources. So that's the PhD situation. The master situation is different. So generically, we do not guarantee funding at any particular level to master students. Now, there are exceptions to that. There are some master students that are admitted with some sort of fellowship or some sort of promise of financial aid. For example, a few master students who are admitted, they are admitted with intention of working with a faculty member on a research project, and that might come with a research assistantship appointment that might include a salary or some combination of a salary and tuition payment, full or partial. Some master students, again, at the time of admission, are offered a scholarship or a fellowship, which is sort of a kind of a competitive fellowship that we award during the admissions review process, and that might be just a fixed amount, and usually they're used as partial payment towards tuition. Sometimes students are able to, they want to and are able to receive them as stipend payments, but this is decided sort of on a case-by-case basis. We have a certain number and actually a great variety of funding opportunities for master students. As I said, some of them are stipends or scholarships. Some of them are GSI or GSRA positions. Now, sometimes for a few master students, they might be actually offered at the time of admission. Sometimes, and I think this is actually more common, that master students, they do get GSI positions, but they usually, especially students who are coming from a different undergraduate institution, usually they apply for a GSI position and they get a GSI position after they've been here already for a semester or two. Okay, so the way appointment of GSIs or teaching assistants for the most part works in the department is that as we're gearing up for each upcoming semester, we look at our classes being offered, we look at our estimates of how many students are going to enroll in each of these classes, and therefore which of these classes need teaching assistants. And then we sort of open an application form to all the students in the department to apply for GSI or teaching assistantship positions that they are interested in and that they are qualified for. And then we kind of match the demand with the supply. And I think in the past few semesters, we had about, and Matt will correct me if I'm wrong with a number off the top of my head, but we had about, between half a dozen and a dozen master students serving as teaching assistants in some course in a given semester. It sort of depends on, how many courses we're offering that actually are large enough to need a GSI. So it varies semester to semester. But yeah, it's usually, usually for the most part, these appointments are made on a semester to semester basis, and every semester we open the application again so that people who are interested can apply and can also tell us which courses they are qualified to serve as instructors for. Now, there's a question about GSI or GSRA position in the first semester. And again, almost everything I'm going to say, well, it's different for masters and PhD students. So for the PhD students, there's some exceptions, but usually they get a fellowship during their first semester, so they don't need a paid GSI or GSRA position. If you're a master student, it kind of depends. So for the GSI positions, with some exceptions, the GSI hiring is done in the summer for the fall semester. So it kind of happens before you have become a student. There are exceptions to that. So for example, I think a number of our master students, even if it's their first semester as a master students, they're sometimes hired as GSIs because they were U of M undergrads. And so usually what happens is if you have taken the course you want to teach or be a teaching assistant for, so you took the course, you did really, really well. And so we know that you're definitely a good match for being a teaching assistant in this course. We might hire a student in their first semester to be a teaching assistant for that course. Now, again, and of course, if you are not a U of M undergraduate student, or you're not a U of M student for whom this is a second master's degree, by the time you are about to begin your second semester, now you've been at U of M for a while, and so there are a lot more opportunities for you to be matched with one of our courses. So your chances do improve as you spend more time here. Now, I think there's often a misconception about this. Appointments for GSI, so teaching assistantships, and GSRAs, so research assistantships, these are actually different kinds of positions, not just in terms of what the actual job responsibilities are. I think that's kind of obvious, but they're different in the following sense. Teaching assistants, GSIs, they're hired by the department, right? So they're hired centrally. They're all hired sort of at the same time as part of a central effort by the department to staff our courses. GSRA, research assistantship positions. These are positions with individual faculty to work on specific research projects. And so those are not, those hiring decisions are not made centrally. They're not made by the department. They're made by individual professors. And so because of that, I can't really speak in any generalities about finding GSRA positions, because what positions are available, what positions students are being recruited for, and the ultimate decision about whether to hire somebody for a particular research assistantship position, they're made by faculty members who are looking for research assistants. So the way, so if you are, again, I'm going to say my catchphrase again is different for PhD and master students. So if you're a PhD student, you know, after sometimes from the very beginning, sometimes, you know, after a certain point, after joining the program, you have a research advisor, you have a dissertation advisor. So usually if you have a research assistantship job, it's with that advisor or with somebody the two of you are collaborating with on the project. So that's sort of a clear combination. When you're a master's student who is just looking for your first for a research experience, you're looking for a project to work on, you have sort of two avenues. One is sometimes there's a sort of announcement being sent to all the graduate students in the department by a faculty member who says, I'm looking for a research assistant for this project. You know, these are the qualifications. This is sort of the job responsibility description. Sometimes they say, you know, it's this many hours a week if it's a part-time research assistant position. If you're interested and if you have these qualifications, please contact me. So other times we have master students reaching out to faculty members whose research they're interested in, and they would like to they would like to you know, work with them on furthering that research, and they ask for sort of availabilities in their research group. And you know, my recommendation is, if you are a student in that position, is to do both. So be proactive and do research on the research, the current research of the faculty members in the department, and see if there are sort of good matches between your interests and also the qualifications and that you might have to participate in that faculty's research work, and contact them, sort of explain and motivate your interest, but also you know, keep your eye open for you know, sometimes general announcements that from faculty or research group who say, you know, we're
Marina,
looking for help.
sorry, yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think I want to keep watching on the time since we have more questions. And I think these are details, maybe, you know, once you get the offer, you're trying to look for, you know, funding opportunities, right? And then we cover some of those in our videos being sent to you as well. So I think, you know, maybe we can answer the 3 open questions in the chat. 2 of them have common sense first, not chat, Q&A. So there was questions about basically, you know, if you're applying for a PhD, but you were rejected from the PhD, can you still basically request to be considered for the master program? And Matt answered it briefly before. Yes, you can. And I would like to elaborate a little bit more on that. Basically, you know, for PhD applicant, if you are if you were rejected, but then you want to be considered, at the time you receive the rejection of letter, you can reach out to Matt and then basically say, I'm interested in being considered as master. And then we will be reviewing your application again, and you don't have to reapply again, basically. And you can even say that in your PhD application somewhere, have a comment there saying you are willing to be considered as a master. And then, afterwards, if we think you qualify, we'll process the admission for master. Although master are not funded when we admit you, right? There is no financial commitment over there, just to be clear. So those answer two of the questions we see here. And then again, the review will be equally like the same as how we review the master. It doesn't say you were PhD applicants, you have more advantage as compared to others who just apply for the master program. It will be all the same review criteria. And then there's another question in terms of writing specifically about what you're interested in working on. Do you want to be more specific? Do you want to have touch on the very general topic? I put a link about IOE research areas in terms of both methodology and application on our website, and welcome to investigate there and also see who are the faculty members, in fact, working in different areas. To me, it's a really, again, a personal case. Some people don't really know yet when they apply for the PhD program, say what exactly the problem I would like to work on. But at least, you have some idea about areas, right? Like why you want to come to IOE and so on and so forth. Some people has very specific idea about what topics they want to work on, who they want to work on. And then, definitely write that information in your application as well. It's a very, kind of like case by case. It doesn't say that you go specific or you don't go specific. We will have a favor, right? And we basically just look at everything overall together. But one suggestion I would like to have is definitely list out some of the potential faculty's name that you are willing to work with if you apply for the PhD program, because then, the committee can match you to the faculty and things like that if we think you're strong. Okay, so I answer the three open questions in the Q&A, and maybe Jesse, you can move on to the. Fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's one more question regarding admissions that I think I saw fly by in the chat. It didn't make its way to the Q&A, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the minimum required score for IELTS exam is, drumroll please, 6.5.
Okay, thank you, Marina. So Marina and Xihen, can one of you answer the first question pretty quickly? Is it possible to complete the master program in 2 years? Yes.
So actually, our master's program is 30 credits requirement. Now, some people take more, but the minimum required is 30 credits. And so if you're enrolled full-time, you should be able to do this in 3 semesters. In fact, that's what most of our master students do. Some really some who really prioritize getting the degree as fast as possible manage to do it in 2 semesters sometimes. But yeah, the typical time you should expect is 3 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. And our last question is, what research project do students work on? I think this is more specific to PhD. As Xichen said before, we've sent you a list of videos. In the videos, some faculties has covered their research areas, but I will ask them to chime in again now to talk about the type of research project they work on. Maybe we can start with Salar and then Raed and Albert.
Sure, I can get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Salar. I'm an assistant professor at IOE. So yeah, my research is on is at the intersection of optimization and statistics. I work more on the methodology side rather than applications, but I'm also involved in some applications. So the topics that I mostly focus on is non-convex optimization together with some real world. The motivation is coming from basically machine learning and data science. So yeah, my research is on, I would say, more on the theoretical side. And going back to the question, I see, yes, we do have students that work on mathematical problems. And it involves a certain amount of coding and computation, but I guess it depends on who you work with. So I guess, yeah.
Sure. And Red?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I think Salar already answered the question that we have faculty that have a focus more on theory, and it's expected there that perhaps the amount of theoretical work will outweigh the amount of computation and coding. Personally, I have a mix of both. I consider myself as an applied statistician. I do have some theoretical endeavors sometimes, but my main area of work is data science. And these days, I'm specifically focused on distributed data science, how to estimate data models in a decentralized fashion. I think a lot nowadays, there is a big trend in decentralization with blockchains, so forth, and this has been my research focus. But again, to the question, some of my projects require very few coding. Basically, it's mainly trying to do some proof, whereas others we are using some existing methods, perhaps some tweaks on them in data science, but our goal is to do to achieve good performance on an application, and there the computation and coding needs are extensive.
And Albert, do you want to add on?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Albert. I'm an assistant professor in the department. So my research is on the design, analysis, and implementation of nonlinear optimization algorithms. A lot of my work is very theoretical. So proving convergence, proving rates of convergence for the algorithms. But for the most part, it's always driven by some sort of application. And the applications that I focus on are machine learning and data science, distributed optimization, derivative-free optimization. So a lot of the stuff that Professor Alcantar and Fatahi just mentioned. The only thing that I want to add to that is that there's a lot of collaboration in the department across faculty and with students as well. And just a couple of examples, I'm working with Professor Fatahi on writing a research proposal to NSF, but also started actively collaborating on research. And Professor Alcantar mentioned decentralized, the decentralized setting. And of course, there is opportunities for collaboration there as well. So I just wanted to bring up the fact that we are very open to collaborating across departments and within the department as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. And also, we have a very strong human factors program in the department. So in human factors, we study how humans collaborate with machines, autonomous vehicles, with how pilot performs in off-nominal situations. And with that, Brian, do you want to provide a brief summary of the research area here at IOE?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jesse. So I put a couple links in the chat. One is a link to our research page and has some brief summaries of the different areas. And then another is a link to the faculty websites where you can learn a lot about the different interests. And I would say that we have a strong balance between theoretical and methodological work to build tools to solve problems. And we also have a lot of active application-driven research. And so, for example, my own research is centered around health. And I study how to use electronic health records to develop models for diseases using longitudinal health data that all health systems collect. And then we try to find ways to optimize decisions like whether and when to use new genetic biomarkers, or whether to initiate some kind of medication. A lot of these things are sequential decision-making problems that have to be solved under uncertainty, and they're computationally challenging. And so have a look at the various applications and methodological areas. And there's more than that. Those are some specific examples where we have a lot of activity, but if you look at the faculty profiles, that'll be very helpful. And mention, as many people as you would be excited potentially to work with in your application. That really stands out when you've done your research and you mentioned some faculty members that you might want to work with.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And next, we have one question about the PhD interviews.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that live, and it's also the detail is in the video that are being sent to you, my video. For the PhD admission process, basically, we have a committee that we review all the applications in detail. Every application will be reviewed by at least 2 to 3 faculty members in the committee or even more. And then we select a smaller list that we are going to send to individual faculty members to review based on the match. Okay, so that's why I suggest, in your personal statement or statement of purpose, to write down the areas you're interested in, as well as the faculty members you might be interested in working with. It doesn't have to be one. And then, we will be matching you if you make to the short list. And then, furthermore, with the specific faculty members, so basically, for PhD, it's really important about, who you're going to be working with, right, in terms of advisor and everything. The format of interview is flexible. We do have a overall recruitment weekend being held this year in 2022 in February. So the second weekend of February, we will have a campus visit. And people who are in the US will be invited if they're in the short list. But then again, before that, it could be faculty members who want to know you more and they schedule a interview with you individually, right? And over Zoom and things like that. So the point is, if you make to the short list, and then there will be like stages of interviewing going on. And then for the international applicant, if you are not able to come in person to visit, we will still have the interview, kind of like a Zoom interview to decide the offer and things like that. Eventually, the offer will be decided by all the faculty members in our department. It will not be one single faculty's decision. It will not be my decision as the chair for the committee. It will not be So it basically, it's an overall decision based on match as well as the merit of the students. Okay. And then Marina just put a chat to one of the other questions being asked about a specific area. And I would just want to kind of like echo that there's a lot of links that are being provided on our website recently get updated. And also the details in the videos that we send it to you have all the answers to this very specific questions that you have in terms of research area and everything. If you can go through our faculty's webpage, then you can find more details about their interest and match over there. Okay, there's one question about the campus visit be virtual due to pandemic. This year, we're not doing virtual. In February, it will be in person. We did last year virtual, but this upcoming, what we plan right now is in person. But of course, things can change. And if in January, everything, anyway, I don't want to say all these bad scenarios, but if things needs to go back to virtual, then let it be.
I just want to mention that for those of you who are not U of M students, we are having sort of an in-person semester right now, of course, with accommodations for people who are sick, to be able to get access to coursework remotely occasionally. But so far, so good. We've had a pretty much in-person semester this fall. We have the same plan for the next semester, which is when the open house would fall. We had an in-person, so sort of a similar event for US students. We did hold it in person in October. So I think we're getting, again, as Sishan said, we still have 3 months to go and a lot of things can change in different directions, but I think we're kind of getting okay at doing this in the current circumstances. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, but I don't want to, I do want to emphasize that, no one will get disadvantaged if you can't come in person, right? So if there's any concern that you don't want to come in person, And then Zoom has already kind of like give a very good platform about interviewing and everything. The review criteria is not about whether we see your face or not. So yeah, it's personal choice, of course. And then of course, there are a lot of international students who can't come in person anyway. And then we still take into account, you know, their application and everything, right? There's one more question in the Q&A, and I think we're about at the time, so I will answer that quickly. And then, you know, for more questions, if you have any more, just send, you know, the email to the IOE gradadmission@umich.edu web email. Basically, you know, we can answer from there. But then I do recommend you to watch all the videos and you know, kind of like the webpage that it's being put in the chat link. You know, they will have a lot of information. So basically for the GRE, we do not require GRE this year. In fact, we do not look at the GRE score. So if you already take the GRE and you do want to send the GRE score, you can send, but then just to be fair to all the people who may not getting the GRE test score down because of pandemic, the review committee will not look at the GRE score even you send it, okay?
Yeah, again, if you have any other questions we didn't cover today, please feel free to send the questions to our grad admission office. With that, I would like to thank you for attending the webinar and thank the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.